Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark, and this is The Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. After vowing to allow justice to play out, President Joe Biden caved in a big splashy way, the pardoning of his son, Hunter. Not just any old pardon, not so fast. It's the pardon of all pardons, the pardon for any federal crime committed between January of 2014 through the day his daddy signed the document. It was a baptismal pardon of Hunter, and it cleansed him of all past sins in the eye of the law. Break down all that is involved here, Graham. What crimes now vanish into thin air?
Well, that's an interesting question, Sarah, the way you phrase it, because, well, what crimes? Any and all crimes. Obviously, Hunter had felony convictions, 3 of them relating to making false statements on a background check form to purchase a firearm, and then also being in possession of a firearm while being a user of illegal substances. You know, we could argue that, the libertarian in me wonders why that's even a crime at all. And it is in fact true that very rarely does anybody go to jail or even see the inside of a courtroom for making a false statement on a background check form to purchase a firearm. Technically, it is illegal, but these cases are almost never prosecuted. So from the Biden's point of view, you might think, well, they dragged him into court and they slapped him with felony charges over that. Maybe that was a bit heavy-handed. That's a matter, we can speculate and debate about that all day. But anyway, those were the charges. And then there were additional tax evasion charges which were prosecuted in Los Angeles. Now, so obviously all of those convictions now go away. But more than that, the pardon itself, or the clemency warrant, as it's officially called, says that Hunter is basically off the hook, quote, for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. Now, very quickly, the judge that was assigned to the tax evasion case was, and his name is Mark Scarcy, and he was none too pleased at all with this pardon. He had a lot of problems with it, but one of the main problems he had with it, and this is interesting, is that Joe Biden signed the pardon on December 1st, and the pardon runs through December 1st. So technically, once the ink was dry on the pardon, Hunter could have gone out and on December 1st, before midnight, and committed any crimes that he wanted, and he would have already been pardoned for them. Now, okay, that sounds like a hypothetical, but technically that is true. And that's why Judge Scarcy is actually saying that this pardon is unconstitutional because it exceeds the president's pardon authority. So the story of this perhaps might not yet be over.
Interesting that you phrased that, just coulda, shoulda, woulda. Hey, obviously Biden has nothing to lose at this point. I mean, nothing at all. He's going to slide off into history. But what about the Democratic Party? I mean, Dave, are they going to suffer from this, or are they going to be covered as usual and have an excuse?
Sarah, it's not clear to me that anyone in the Democratic Party cares two hoots what Biden does or doesn't do. There are a few who have put on their sanctimonious hat, and there's a modicum of character that they're trying to project with disappointment, but it's just short of condemnation or outrage. So the pardon is not a slam dunk, however, in any event, because it may absolve Hunter of guilt for the rest of time, but it doesn't absolve Biden from what he did as a former vice president. And from what I understand, the vice president doesn't enjoy the same immunity that the president does. And most of the family corruption took place when he was vice president. The president's brother is also at risk, but I predict by the end of next week, the president's brother will be pardoned as well. One other nuance is that now the Congress can call Hunter in to testify, and he can't claim Fifth Amendment privilege of self-incrimination because he's already been pardoned for any incrimination. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this sorts out, but I hope that the new Congress doesn't spend much time on it. It's just kind of tilting at windmills, in my view, and they've got much better things to put on their docket. And besides, if Biden were going to do a book deal, he'd have to remember stuff. And we know Special Counsel Hur has explained that's a wasted effort.
Hey, Dave, are there any betting odds for your prognostication? Anything on Polly Market? Send a quick cash on?
Yeah, I think it's probably 99 to 1 in favor.
But, here's over the last week, social media has gone wild on this. And there's a compilation, it's probably 20 minutes long, of all the different legacy media channels, cable news, all the biggies, talking about when Joe Biden said he would never, ever pardon Hunter. And they gushed at, this is a president that believes in the law of the land. And now they have egg on their faces. So how are they reacting, Clark? What do you think's going on with these guys? Are they even going to talk about it? It's just another, we were wrong, sorry.
Karine Jean-Pierre has been making the rounds a lot with her repeated assurances. No, it's never going to happen. Is it any surprise to anyone that this administration that has so lost credibility is going out on perhaps the saddest note of credibility of its entire tenure? This whole travesty extends before he ever ran for president. Many Democrats have been very outspoken that this was sabotaged from day one, that he never should have even run because of the corruption of his son and his family. And Dave's quite right that it certainly looks like really he's circling the wagons and will be pardoning others, that really in pardoning his son, he's pardoning himself. He's shielding himself from the so-called lawfare or accountability that this administration may face for some of its dealings that came to light on that computer that was so hidden from Americans in the 2020 election. So I think that
Cringeworthy.
to me, it's like the last closing pages of a surreal chapter. This presidency has been marked by surreal departures from truth and the rule of law. And so I do think actually it's caused horrible damage to the Democratic Party. They have horrible credibility problems. I'm not entirely sympathetic, but I do think that some Democrats themselves are literally, it's caused a huge division. Some are poo-pooing it and making defenses. And Biden himself, I guess, said that, this is to protect his son from relapse into addiction that the Republicans are trying to push him into. If you really care about your son, you should let him go to prison. But anyway, so I think it's their problem. It's as far as the party, it's not just a Biden problem. It's a credibility problem for all the Democrats, and I think that we're seeing that sort of infighting as a reflection of that.
And I'm going to declare this right now. I don't think we're going to ever allow the use of the term poo-pooing to ever be on the conservative five again. So just I'm warning you. Anyway, Andrew.
Got me? Did I? Yeah.
You.
Oh, well, I'll use it again then.
Darn it.
There's the poo-poo of the beauties.
Andrew, what are people saying internationally? Do they care? Do they even care about what's going on with this shenanigans in this country?
Sorry, guys. I think people outside the United States just do not care about the president's son. Canada is worrying about these tariffs that Trump is threatening us with. South Korea is flirting with martial law. Europe is Europe, slowing down. Mexico has all these, migrant invasions. So no, guys, sorry. The rest of the world does not care about Hunter Biden at all.
So it's just basically a bunch of Americans worried about the man cub, and
it's just for news junkies. All the stuff is just the plain. It's all popcorn entertainment. That's a whole sideshow of U.S. politics these days. Just grab your popcorn, or in some other cases, Pepto-Bismol, and just watch CNN all day or MSNBC and get a kick.
I'm not at all going to kind of defend Hunter. That's not my intention. I'm not trying to excuse any of his behavior. I mean, he really was. I could think of all kinds of words that I would use to describe him. I'm not going to go into that. I also happen to think he is perhaps suffering from one or more personality disorders, to be perfectly honest with you. But, I don't know that for sure. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm also not a biologist, so maybe he's not actually a man. I don't know. I can't tell. But anyway, but one thing I will say is that there's no doubt that, Hunter Biden's life was mostly thrown into the spotlight and has been the subject of so much media attention purely because of who he is, even despite his crimes or other alleged crimes, such as, money laundering and influence peddling, and the list goes on and on and on. He would have been he would have had, a few column inches on page 5 or 6 of national newspapers had he been anyone else but Hunter Biden.
What this does is the pardon by the president of his son tends to start to close the door on any outrage that Trump might elicit by pardoning the January 6th victims.
Good point. That's a good point.
This is what I find interesting when it comes to this story is the economic angle of this. Because if you look at all the credit downgrades by Moody's and Fitch, and you have comments from Janet Yellen talking about why the U.S. is such an attractive place is because of the rule of law. But if this is the new normal where you have the sitting president saying, the justice system has been infected by politics, then you start to question, okay, can you really park your money in the United States based on the idea of the rule of law? I mean, the U.S. government itself has already thwarted the rule of law. You look at just happened on foreign policy when the U.S. government froze and liquidated and confiscated $300 billion in Russian assets with a country that the U.S. is not even at war with. That's unprecedented. So, many people have questioned this too. Financial analysts, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, Senator Rand Paul, they've questioned if the U.S. it remains a safe harbor for foreign investors based on these recent developments.
I don't know. It's only going to get more interesting. So, so much for vows and promises made by the outgoing administration. But I'm kind of curious as to who Biden will pardon next. Thanks for playing, panel, and thanks for tuning in. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, or on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.